Pretty much anywhere you go, some sort of fishing opportunity exists. Yet, depending on where you're at and who you're with, that opportunity might be perceived drastically different. Sometimes it's a source of entertainment, sometimes it's a source of food.
For me and Marcus, we find different fishing cultures fascinating and we love new experiences.
So this series is dedicated to exploring the various methods of angling within our home state of Montana and trying to catch as many species as possible. For us, ANYFIN goes. In 2011, I was going to school for fish and wildlife management. I was applying for jobs all over the place, trying to find a summer position. I was leaning towards going into fisheries, because I heard fish biologists tend to have more time in the fall for hunting than wildlife biologists do. I had been rejected numerous times, but finally I got offered a position in Northeast Montana as a fisheries intern. I was going to get to work on the river all summer, collecting and recording data and squeezing fish. I was pumped. It was my first job offer in my field of study, and my buddy Rocky had just got a job in the same town. We were going to bro out and fish hard all summer. But then I got another job offer, closer to home, and I had just met this girl. So I bailed on the fish, and I bailed on Rocky. Little did I know, this was going to be a defining moment in my career path. I continued with wildlife jobs for the next 5 years, while Rocky went down the path of becoming a professional fish squeezer. I feel bad, because I continue to bail on trips with Rocky to this day. But occasionally, we do actually get together to chase some fish or some critters. We invited a big group this year, but with the rain and snow in the forecast, most of them bailed, including my dad, who's usually a part of the crew. He was packed and ready to go, but with the weather, he decided to stay home, and when he was unpacking his pickup and taking his paddlefish rod out, this happened. Well, I guess that's karma for not going. Our crew that did brave the weather this year consisted of Rocky, his brother Trevor, Michael, and Kara.
I'm 100% bad.
This is our third year filming our paddlefish shenanigans, but if you haven't seen those videos, here's a little refresher. Paddlefish are filter feeders. They only eat tiny zooplankton, so bait and lures are of no use. The way that we catch them is using big surf casting rods, giant treble hooks, and weights. And we snag.
This is absolutely insane.
For the vast majority of sport fishing, snagging is illegal, which is understandable. In a lot of scenarios, snagging likely increases catch rates and mortality. But for paddlefish, this is about the only way that you're going to hook into one via rod and reel.
Yeah? This is not a common occurrence, folks.
Apparently, snagging for paddlefish is quite controversial. A lot of people disapprove. Well, at least a lot of people who comment on YouTube videos disapprove. You'll see things like, "That's not fishing. I'll never snag a fish." Aren't those things endangered? This represents greed and non-sportsman conduct. It should not be allowed. They help filter the water. This should be illegal. That one's my favorite. So, fair enough. Everyone is entitled to their opinion. But let me get on my soapbox and tell you why my opinion is better than yours. That was sarcasm in case you didn't get it. Paddlefish are not endangered in Montana. They are a species of concern, but the state closely monitors the population, collecting data on harvested paddlefish and watching for any trends. The visual is pretty brutal. That's an 8/0 hook sunk into the flesh of a fish. I know, it's gnarly, but think about it. Is regular fishing really that much better? Whether you're snagging or fishing, you're still shoving a hook through that fish and jerking out of the water into the air where it can't breathe. I guess some people find solace in fishing if they trick the fish into biting the hook rather than surprising it.
Oh yeah, that one's got a little bend in it.
I find this to be an interesting human behavior from our culture evolving over the years. Most of us fish for recreation rather than survival. That, combined with the fact that we have so much excess time in our society now, it's allowed us to come up with a set of ethics and rules to make us feel better about how we utilize resources. Yes, these rules get set in place to restrict pressure on the resource, but there's definitely a big cultural influence on them. This culture is so ingrained in us that we feel bad for snagging a fish, even if it's the only way that we're going to catch one via rod and reel. And I'm not saying that having ethics and culture is a bad thing. I just find it fascinating how strongly people feel about their personal set of ethics and how much they will hate you for going against their beliefs. Anyway, I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel a little bad about snagging a paddlefish. But I also find it incredibly fun, and I find paddlefish incredibly tasty.
Yo, let's go, Marcus.
I need to get it out from under you, Marcus.
And then,
There we go. Nice work, dude.
It was the 1930s. FDR was president, and he had this thing going called the New Deal. This supposed civil works group called the U.S. Corps of Engineers shows up to make some so-called improvements. They start damming the rivers. By 1940, Fort Peck Dam is finished, and then Garrison Dam by 1953. Because of this newly flooded landscape, a ton of nutrients enter the system. Certain fish species begin to take advantage of this new productive reservoir, including paddlefish. The populations expand greatly. But over time, these reservoirs age. They become less productive, the habitat begins to degrade, and the impact of having loss of connectivity becomes more apparent. Non-native fish continue to be stocked into these artificial systems, while many of the native fish suffer. While the paddlefish population handled the change well, they could not sustain at these inflated highs. They declined back down and appear to be holding at a fairly stable population. Because of these dams, two different paddlefish populations exist and operate independently of one another in Montana. You have the Upper Missouri, whose population only exists in Montana, and then you have the Yellowstone population that spans from Montana to North Dakota into Lake Sakakawea. For now, reporting of harvested paddlefish is mandatory, and FWP can collect jaw samples to age angler-caught fish. This gives them an idea of recruitment and what is happening at the population level. They aim to keep a close eye on the population, and be ready to adapt as needed if they notice any significant changes. Current consensus is that this is a fairly sustainable fishery, permitting for some harvest, while allowing for catch and release fishing as well. Catch and release, another aspect of paddle fishing that might put a knot in your stomach.
Oh, did you hook one? I don't know. Yeah. Keep your tip up.
yeah, you guys gotta coach me through this.
Trevor, get him.
Oh, let's go. Get
log. Trevor, get him out of that log.
You gotta pull on him. You gotta pull on him.
How much?
Pull on him hard, dude.
Okay, so we have to, this is released for sure, right?
Yep. We'll get some photos. Yeah, it's a good one. Way to go. Oh, look at that tail.
That's a nice fish.
Female. Oh. Good job.
Snagging and killing them is one thing, but releasing a fish with a hook scar from an 8/0 hook, yeah, it does seem a little rough. A few studies have looked at the mortality of caught and released paddlefish, and similar to most warm water fish species, paddlefish seem to have a very low mortality rate after being caught and released. Now, this hasn't been studied extensively, but from what I have found, only one fish in one of the studies has died when it was hooked in the belly and got ripped open.
Prehistoric ass fish.
Yeah.
That's what I came here for.
The fact that paddlefish are so hardy was a tough concept for me to grasp at first. Because growing up trout fishing, if you just look at a trout wrong, it'll die. Studies on fly fishing for trout, catch and release mortality show anywhere from 3 to 4% die. So yeah, the hipster nature fly fisher bro kills more fish unintentionally than the crazy redneck guy just snagging fish. Just saying. These things have stood the test of time. They've been around for 120 million years. They have outlived so many other species, which just adds to the level of intrigue for me. How are they able to adapt to the changing environment over the time? And will they be able to continue to adapt with the increasingly rapid changes we're seeing? I don't know, but being able to see one of these prehistoric giants in person is pretty incredible. I think the number one factor that determines whether or not you're going to catch a paddlefish is luck. Nothing drives home this point more than the fact that Rocky spent more time on the river than anyone. He just wanted it so bad. And this is a guy who fishes dang near every day. He spends a ton of time on the river for both work and recreational angling. He's netted hundreds of paddlefish while working, but he just can't seem to get it done with the rod and reel. He snagged for hours longer than anyone else at camp. I can't even imagine how many casts, how many snags. But if you keep at it long enough, you might just get lucky.
Guys! I had the drag set real tight.
Did it snap off?
It snapped.
Or maybe he's just a bad fisherman.
It might be real deep.
It's probably deep enough. I was checking with my sinker a little while ago. It's like,
Oh!
What'd you... Is it real?
That's fish.
Got it.
The drag's not right.
Yes.
hey, get those lines in!
Reel in. Fish on. Yes.
We're really worried about that log. I think he's outside of it.
Yeah, how are we gonna land this thing?
I don't know.
I don't know if it is. Like, you gotta keep it, obviously try and keep it away from the log, but...
We'll just see what happens, dude.
Yeah,
There's nothing we can do. We were playing with fire. That's why we were down here.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I mean, eventually that spool's gonna run out, so...
All right, let's freaking get me.
This may or may not be a good idea.
It's an idea.
Well, we're on this log. Is it? Yeah, oh yeah. That's why we hit it, dude. We're attached to this log somewhere. It's right up in here somewhere.
Dude, that was crazy for a second.
Go upstream. We're attached to this log somehow. How? Not a f***ing clue. I got gumbo in my veins. See, it's attached there. That fish is clearly not there because we're attached to it. So we have to get off that log somehow. So go upstream towards that log. I don't have any line. I'm just holding now.
We tried everything we could to get that thing unwrapped from that log, but it just kept spooling him out.
Oh,
Come off. I think it broke.
oh, it definitely broke.
Nothing on the end of there?
We lost the fish, but we gave it our all. Just imagine how cool it would have been if we had landed it. Oh well.
That was fun.
You know, sometimes she goes, sometimes she doesn't go. Today she didn't go, boys. So, I guess back to snagging. Great job, Marcus.
You're doing a great job for yourself, you know? That's like a good fish for you.
Like, so far this is the best I've ever seen you.
I switched up tactics this year and tried something a little different. Because there's no bones in a paddlefish, we usually cut large steaks, making cuts perpendicular to the fish. But having the birch barrel along, I thought it'd be fun to try a more traditional fillet and cook a giant slab all at once. The meat is very dense, unlike any fish I've ever had. Although I've heard it's similar to swordfish. It's pretty greasy, but in a good way.
Can't beat it.
So fresh, so clean.
Clean, questionable. Fresh, absolutely.
That's true.
You don't think these things are clean?
No, the fish are. There's a lot of river mud in the stuff we were doing today. Like, which is fine. A little grit never hurt anybody.
It's just different than most fish.
It's so good. There's no like fishy. There's no like fishy taste. You know, like trout have that.
Yeah, it's just a different flavor and texture.
It's amazing.
Hidden sturgeon are very similar.
The paddlefish I caught was a female, which grow much bigger than the males. And this time of year, they're loaded with eggs, or roe, on their way to spawn. In some cultures, this roe, or caviar, is a delicacy, and this was actually a major contributing factor to the demise of the Chinese paddlefish. In recent years, the worldwide demand for this caviar has decreased a bit, but it still can be worth a considerable amount of money. The Lacey Act prohibited the sale of sportsman-taken fish and wildlife, which has been a huge win for sportsmen and wildlife in the United States. If you were to attempt to sell paddlefish caviar, there are major repercussions and you would get in a lot of trouble. But that being said, there are some weird exceptions to the Lacey Act, such as a small eastern Montana town's Chamber of Commerce being allowed to sell paddlefish caviar to fund grants and small communities. So take that for what it is. I've tried to salt and preserve caviar in the past with decent success. I really enjoy just having a few small spoonfuls, or you sprinkle a little bit of caviar on top of a cracker. But you end up with about 20 pounds of it from each fish, and it's a little overwhelming. It stays good for a little while, and I've tried to share it with many people, but for some reason, people rarely ask for a second jar of my weird salted fish eggs. We'll see if Rocky has better luck than me getting through 20 pounds of salted fish eggs. The last morning of the trip, we needed to pack up and head out. It was looking like Rocky was going home empty-handed. But as luck would have it, when the cameras weren't rolling, he hooked into a giant.
Dude, let's go. Good morning.
Trevor, somebody get down there, Trev.
I'm going.
Nice. Trevor. Oh my god. Trevor, that hook's on that side.
I will. Workouts in.
Go to the bathroom for 5 minutes.
Last day fish, baby. One more
Let's
pull,
go.
Kara.
Snag angry, Kara.
Snag angry.
Oh my god.
Rolling. He's good. Woo! Trevor just grabbed it. No fear. Just belly hugged it.
Dude, I don't think the hook's in it.
Trevor makes the fish look smaller.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
what a
bullshit. A river gypsy once told me it only takes one pull. Ooh, buddy. 90.
90.
On the nose. Today she went.
At the end of paddlefish camp, we're extremely grimy, our muscles are sore, and it's a long drive home. But there are so many memories that we create every time that we do this, and I can't wait to get back and do it all over again.
Native Montana catfish, stonecat.
On the next episode of ANYFINs, we're chasing the toothy critters. For some reason, Midwesterners lose their mind for a flavorless fish that fights like a clump of moss. We explore this phenomenon and search for pike and walleye in Montana's largest body of water.